Hello, amazing parents and caretakers, and welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I'm your family empowerment coach, Celia Kibler. I'm a mom of a blended family of 5 kids. I'm a grandma of 9 kids, an author, a teacher, a speaker, and a consultant with over 40 years of training and real-life parenting experience. I'm here to offer you practical, doable tips, strategies, and techniques that will pump up your parenting skills and create peace, love, and laughter throughout your family. In addition, I'll be interviewing some great humans that are on a mission to make your life a better, happier, and healthier life. So let's not waste any time and get started with the next episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Today, I'm very happy to be talking today because this topic is near and dear to my heart because I myself have a charitable foundation. And I bring to you John Bromley, and he is the founder of Charitable Impact. And we are going to talk about what you can do to really create kids that are more charitable so that you're working as a family to give more, do more, be more, all of those mores. So let me introduce you I already introduced you. So nix that part and let's just go on to John. John, welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast.
I'm pumped up.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining all the way from Canada.
Oh, so far away, but so close. And
Yeah.
we're good friends.
Right. Just across the street. Just
Just
down the road a bit,
just
hon.
across the border. Yeah.
That's
A
what we
little
say
bit,
in Baltimore.
little bit colder up here, depending on which part of Canada you're in, though.
Maybe not. Maybe what? Are you cold today?
No, well, Vancouver's where I'm at, and it's a
Hmm.
lovely climate, not unlike Seattle. You know, you get a lot of rain, but it's never
Yeah.
too cold. But yeah,
Vancouver's
the rest of
beautiful.
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly beautiful. Yeah, a little down the road and down to the other side of the continent. All right, so let's get started. So, John, if you would say how people can reach you first, because, some people may have things to do. They may not stay for the whole time, which is okay.
Oh,
And then we won't take it personally. And then, but you should come back. Come back if you have to go away. And, but say like where people can reach you, and then tell us a little bit why you got so passionate about this.
sure. Yeah. Um, it's our job to keep people engaged. So if we'll do our best. Uh, so you can find me at charitableimpact.com. Charitable Impact is a web-based organization, and we're also on most of the social medias. So you can find us at We Are Charitable. Do a lot of content in LinkedIn, Instagram in particular. So look for us there. And you know, we can talk about anything you want to talk about, Celia. But I started Charitable Impact, which is a donor advised fund. So it's a donor centered giving platform. And I started it because, when I asked myself, where do people go to get advice about their giving? Where do people go to be able to carry out their giving, regardless of what charities they want to support, what causes they're currently caring about, or how much money they have to give away? Where do they go? And it was too hard of a question to answer. So we started Charitable Impact to answer that question.
So, do people actually go on to Charitable Impact and find different charities, or like, can they search their interests? If somebody's interested in kids or, you know, nature or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so it's what charity nerds would understand to be a donor advised fund. And that's kind of like a bank account, but just for giving. So the way it works for a donor is you can put your money into an account with us at Charitable Impact, and you're issued a charitable tax receipt right away. So when you put the money in, that's when the donation at law takes place. You can then sit on that money as you really think about how you want to use it to create whatever impact you're into, impacting kids, food security, helping alleviate poverty, health, whatever's
Creating
charitable, right?
calm.
There you go. Right. So if you're a registered charity in Canada, you will be on our platform, and our users can give to you. So we're not in the United States right now, unfortunately. There are platforms like Charitable Impact in the United States, though. And yeah, so really, that's why I talk about it as a donor-centered platform, because it's a place where a donor, whether you're a person or a corporation, can go to carry out and manage their charitable giving. And you
That's
can do it all from one place, right?
that's so great. That's makes life much easier.
That's one of the benefits of the donor advised fund. Yeah.
Right.
And when things become easier, do we participate in them more?
Always,
We hope
always.
so. We hope so.
What they say, make it stupid simple. Make it simple stupid. However you say that. And people will do more. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about how you build a more charitable home, how you get kids interested in charity. How do you, make this kind of a family mission? A lot of corporations do it, people that have companies will do it. But how do you do it so that your kids also take an interest in helping the world?
Hmm. Such a simple question, Celia. You know, um, well, I mean, part of that is, reflecting on how kids really get into anything in life. I mean, I don't think charitable giving is really all that different from a lot of other things. And so there's got to be some exposure to it, right? And if they're exposed through the home, then that's a good place. In fact, we did some research a while back, and it was super intuitive what we learned. But, adults who give regularly were like way more likely to have been exposed to charitable giving as a kid. So for example, being in a home where parents, donated a little bit here and there, and talked about it a little bit. Um, because you need to model things for people to learn it, right? You need to talk about it. And last but not least, you need to, and I believe very strongly, you need the kids to practice it themselves, right? Like, whoever grew up to be a baseball player without actually playing baseball,
Right.
right? So, and that's one of the reasons we launched this charitable allowance program, which is, a place where a parent can give some charitable money to a kid into their own giving account for the kid to give away, right? And I actually do that with my own kids, and really it's kind of like, hey, it's your money to give away, but I'm still your parent, so let's talk about it a little bit.
Right.
What is it you're thinking about? What is it, this week or month that's on your mind the most, that you might want to, choose to give something away to, and then you sort of take them from there. And some of it is about, you know really getting into what the kid cares about, because that's what drives so much charitable giving. And then the other part is sort of encouraging them, and teaching them
Yes.
that their actions matter, right? Big or small, these little things we do over time do contribute towards creating change.
Absolutely. And I love that you said talk about it. You know, I and when you said that, it reminded me like one of the charities I give to is the charity my mom gave to. And when she passed away, I didn't want to stop that. She was, very attaches Smile Train, where they fix cleft palates and things like that in
Hmm.
kids. And she just loved that charity. And I was like, well, as soon as she died, I picked up where she left off so that donation would always stay active, kind of, you know, with her thoughts in mind. But I would never have known that if she hadn't talked about it. And that conversation is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you know what? That's not a totally uncommon story. I talk to a lot of adults who have lost parents who do retain connection to their parent after they've passed through charitable giving, whether it's giving money and or time. Oh, my mom volunteered, here for forever, and she's gone, and I just feel a special, a little bit of her when I go there and volunteer. And
Right.
look, that stuff's all super cool. To each their own on that one. From our perspective at Charitable Impact, we just want people engaged, right? And I really haven't, back to my sports analogy, I've really never seen, someone who just watched baseball on TV become a baseball player. Right? To become a baseball player, you are ideally watching some of it on TV, here, how do the pros do it, but then you play it yourself, and in that environment of playing it yourself, ideally you have some kind of mentor or coach,
Right.
right? I mean, that's what's so cool about coaching. Oh, we don't swing the ball bat that way, we swing it this way. And the other part that's actually really important that needs to be talked about more in the charitable giving space is the social connectivity. Like, like my one of my kids in particular plays a lot of sport, and like so many of his good friends come from his soccer team, right? And so there's connectivity also in social in social impact in charitable giving, right? So who are the people who also volunteer here? Can they or will they become my friends? How do we do things together to create impact for the things that we share in common in terms of what we care about? Um, and in that way, charitable giving isn't just something that creates impact in community. It also creates impact for us as people.
Yeah. And that's such a good point because I didn't even think about that. Like you think about, um, so many people give, even if people give like $10, and you have 50 people giving $10, and then, that's $500 going into, that uh, organization. But like to get a group of people to like create this social aspect of giving, that's such a great idea. And such a great idea for foundations to recognize that they can create, you know, to get this kind of camaraderie going on to like, we're going to work on this, we're going to do this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. The other point about this, the social, side of giving that's important, it's not just the money, right? Because, ideally when people give money, they do it thoughtfully and with some purpose behind it. And in that case, it's not just money that's changing hands, it's also someone's mind and ideally their heart that's kind of going along with it. And especially when you think about kids, right? So when you talk about problems in the world, of which there are plenty. Uh, in my town, homelessness is a big deal, right? You see homeless people on the street. So raising a child who understands that as a real problem, ideally grows to have empathy and some understanding of how people end up homeless. And also then going, hey, there's actually something I can do to contribute towards this is super important, right? So it's not just our money that matters, it's the hearts and minds that get developed as we participate in giving back to community. And that's one of the things that I think is really important for parents to hear with kids, because you can actually develop your kids' maturity, their worldview, their sophistication related to problems, whether it's poverty or health or environmental, whatever they are into and or you are into, uh, and that can be done through charitable giving.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can make, and it helps to make children more aware of their environment, more aware because children are born into the world with, it's all about me. I mean, we're naturally born that way. And we learn through our first community, which is our family, that it's not all about me, that we are part of a bigger world. And when you go into charity and you start teaching kids about gratitude, parents will always come to me, my kids don't appreciate anything. They don't appreciate anything. We give them all this stuff. They care less. They don't appreciate anything. But what they're missing is that they're not emphasizing in the raising of these children things like gratitude, things like recognizing that there are benefits that they may have that others don't. And when you practice daily gratitude, just like daily giving and thinking, okay, look, I found a penny. Do I keep it? Or maybe it goes into my bank where I'm going to give it. I'm going to put it in the Charitable Impact organization or something like that. When you start doing gratitude and recognition on a daily basis, then your brain starts looking for things to be grateful for. And once a child's brain starts, or anyone's brain starts looking for things to be grateful for, that's when the magic happens. That's when the switch goes from, assuming, I just get whatever I want to appreciating what I have and whatever that abundance looks like personally.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And that's, I think, where charitable habits happened. And like you say, they have to be role modeled and they have to be talked about. I go back to that because so many families don't talk about money. They don't
Mm,
talk to their kids about like what things cost and how much you know things that we need in life, what we have to do to have enough money for that. I had a conversation with a client about college, and their son wanted to go from one college to another college, and it was double the cost, the college he wanted to go to. And I'm like, it's okay to say too much. It's too much money. There's not justification for you going there. Just because you want to doesn't mean it's feasible. Or
hmm
wait a
hmm
year and go find scholarships so that you can go there. Like, empower your children. And one of the things with, offering charity and thinking about others is exactly that, is empowering them.
Correct. I couldn't agree more. And actually, the charitable giving lens with kids is a pretty comfortable and safe place to start talking about money. In my experience, right? There's so many things that, our kids want, almost to the point of demanding it, depending on like, within reason how they're raised in the social circles that they're in, right? They just don't understand that, gee, this item costs money. So the way I deal with that, I mean, we do give our kids an allowance, and then we say, hey, you've got to buy a bunch of this stuff yourself, right? And sort of
Right.
see
Right.
what happens when your bank account goes down in value, as opposed to how it goes up in value when you don't spend, but you keep getting your allowance. And using the charitable dollars and just to teach similar financial literacy lessons, except with the application of that being, change agency and money has a purpose, money can be used to create change in the world, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, but the barrier to talking about money is a big one. Um, I think it's actually a bigger deal than talking about charity and causes.
I definitely think people have so many weird, me included, mindset about money. I mean, I'm always one to say I'm terrible at money. I'm great with kids. I'm great with parenting. I'm like those are my superpowers. Money, not my superpower, never has been. And thank goodness my kids are better with money than I ever was. Um, but that's because I try to do the same like with allowance, and put it in categories. And, you know, this much goes into savings and this much goes into charity. Like that was one of our categories. And, if you wanted something, it could come out of your allowance, not necessarily out of
Hmm
my wallet. And I did that with my
hmm
grandson. He wanted to buy um, like what do they call in video games? Like an outfit, like
Oh
it's
yeah,
not called an outfit.
sure.
It's called
Yeah.
something else, but it's like an outfit.
Yeah, like an
And
avatar. Yeah.
yeah. And so he asked me, he was there. He's like, Emma, can I have $20 to buy this outfit, whatever it was? And I go, well, honey, so you want $20 to buy like air, like a drawing, like Like that's what you're buying. You're not going to hold it in your hand. You're buying like air. He goes, well, no, it's like because I want my guy to wear this, whatever it was. And I said, didn't you bring $20 with you? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, if you want, you can buy the outfit for $20. I will make sure that it goes through and you can give me your $20. And then he's like, well, no. Like all of a sudden, if he had to use his money, wasn't as valuable as it was using my money, which is why it is important for them to be allowed to buy their own. Don't just give. They have to learn that value somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Hi, I'm Celia Kibler, and I am the founder of the International Day of Calm. And I want to take a minute to tell you why I created the Day of Calm and why it is my intention to create this feeling of calm, happiness throughout the year. Because if we don't do something to change our daily lives, how will we ever change future generations? How will we create the next generation of adults that are confident and that are self-reliant and that are intentional about their own behaviors if we don't take the time to show them and role model what it's like to be that kind of person? It's a fourfold mission. Number one is personal responsibility. Each person has to start taking responsibility for themselves, for their actions and reactions, to stop the ridicule, the judgment, the criticism, and start connecting compassionately. We are all role models to kids. We need to create intentional parents that create a cooperative, respectful, happy home and create the family harmony that every family deserves and every child deserves. We need to have expressive education that allows a child to be curious and creative and finds learning fun. We need to make children safe. We need to have them know that their personal harm is not an everyday worry, that they're safe in their homes and in their schools. And these four initiatives combine to create a child that becomes the adult of the next generation who is confident, who is not recovering from their childhood, who is intentional, compassionate, loving, kind, and willing to learn about other people and other ways and other values. Let's do this together. Join me for the International Day of Calm. Join me for the International Day of Calm Summit when you can learn how to do this. And let's start doing this not just for one day on April 5th, but throughout the year. Isn't our world worth it? Isn't the next generation worth it? Go to dayofcalm.org.
Some people say with the charitable allowance, well, the kid's just giving your money away. So, what are they really learning in that? And I think that's a really interesting and important comment. I don't know a lot of 10, 11, 12-year-olds, even 13-year-olds who are making money. So, one pushback I give is, well, so you just, wait, you know, till they're old enough to make money before you talk about, how to go about having social impact. My advice is don't wait, right? So
Right.
much of who we are gets formed at younger ages than we can ever imagine. Um, and then the other thing that I think is important is that like people who value charitable giving and and understand that when they give, whether it's their time or money, that they do create impact, that impact starts to drive why they do it, right? And so I think it's important to distinguish between giving your own money away and using money to create impact. Those are related things, but they're separate. And saying, well, look, this charitable allowance concept is really about, in its early stages, creating an understanding that money can be used to give towards things that we care about. Going through a list of priorities about what we care about more is a useful exercise, teaches you about the world, things you were saying earlier. And then out of that habit of using money that you see or have to create impact, my hypothesis is, and we'll test this, but my over time, but my hypothesis is, as the kid starts, working in the restaurant, bus being a bus boy or a bus girl, earning a little bit of money, and it's easier then to say, okay, well, how much of that are we actually going to, put over here in this giving away pot,
Right.
right? So you create the joy of creating impact as part of who they are, and then the hypothesis is it's easier to get them to start using their time and or money to contribute in an ongoing way once they are more in charge of their money, more in charge of their time. And actually research corroborates that, right? When you go out and you talk to people who volunteer on boards, who give regularly, it's an outsized percentage of people who say, well, yeah, it's because I was effectively taught this when I was young.
Right. Exactly. And role modeling, I saw my parents do this. I saw, what they actually did, and sometimes, in charitable organizations, if they volunteered on boards and some kids would go along and they would see what the impact is. How does the allowance program that you created, how does that work? So if a family wanted to do the charitable allowance program, what do they do?
Yeah, the parent or the person who has the kid in their life that they care about, comes to our website and they start their own giving account, right? So they create their own, we call it an impact account. They start their own impact account and they put money into that impact account. And then they actually start a second impact account, in the kid's name. And then and that's the second thing they do. And the third thing they do is they say, okay, take money from the account where I originally put it and take some of that money and put it into their account. So it's 2025, most of us now bank online and things
Right.
like that. So it's not unlike saying, here's my own personal bank account. I created another bank account for my child and I put the money into their bank account on a weekly basis or on a monthly
Right.
basis.
Right.
So the parent has their own account, the kid has their own account, and the money flows from the parent's account to the kid's account. And that can be a recurring gift, right? Set it up every week,
Right.
or
Could be like
I do it every, I do it,
$20 a week. Right.
yeah, I do it every month with my kids, $10 for each of them. And then the money's in their account, and then and they use that to give away to the charities that they choose, right? And that's where the conversation happens predominantly for me anyways, is how are we going to use this money? It's also a conversation that you're going to get $10 a month, but that's a once or twice conversation, and here's where it's coming from. And it's thanks to me and mom that this is happening. And but your job now is to give it away, and it's almost a version of homework.
Yeah.
Um, Now, for what it's worth,
And
in
research.
and research, and that's where lots of learning comes in, right? It's not just creating impact for the charities they choose. It's really developing them to learn about stuff, research things. You can get into some, financial literacy if you want to look at the charity characteristics. If they kind of go, oh, but I want to get more money here, on our platform, they can go and set up a fundraising page and, hey, go ask grandma and grandpa if they're willing to contribute. Maybe set up a lemonade stand this weekend and maybe we can earn some money. So all of that stuff, in my opinion, is as much about developing the kids' financial literacy, their social skills, their communication skills, as much as it is teaching them about the literal importance of charitable giving. It's a little bit of both. And that's actually why I think it's such a powerful program, is because it's not just, hey, like some money's going to charity and isn't that a good thing? Although that is a good thing. It's also, we're engaging our kid to think critically, and with $10 a month, they can't save all causes and they can't give to all charities. So there's some critical thinking there, there's some prioritization, there's choice making, and all sorts of other things that, as adults or as older teenagers even, they're facing on a daily basis.
Right. right. Teaches them math skills, and banking skill, like teaches them, what's the word? How long money builds, which
Yeah, yeah,
is not the word,
yeah.
but it,
Well,
it describes
yeah,
it.
and well, like you think about like compounding interest and things like
Compounding.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay,
that.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
compounding
you
in
put 10 a
particular.
month, 10 a month, 10 a month. All of a
Yeah.
sudden you look at your account and then you got like $120 in there. Like, how'd that happen?
Well, yeah, and there's an explanation for that, right? And understanding that is important. The other thing with, the charitable allowance and the donor advised fund, the way we've created it, is the kid can let the amount build up. So, I have two kids, and like so many people say, like, well, my kids are so different, and I have one kid who, um, you know, with the charitable allowance was giving the money away really regularly, right? And money would come in, he'd send it out. And the other kid, he wants to build it up. And when you talk about why, he's like, well, I want to like really think about something that's really special to me and give them like a big whack of money,
Yeah,
not $10, $500 or
right,
something like that. And to each their own. Every parent, can and should nurture their kid the way they want to do it. But in my world, my view is that's totally fine and that's cool, right? Like eventually you got to do something, right? But
right,
other than that, like if that's the approach you want to take, that's really awesome. And so instead of being like, hey, this month, where are you going to give your money? It's more like, hey, this month, did you make any ground up in terms of thinking about how you think you might want to send that larger amount of money because it is stacking up, right? And so we talk about the progress that he's made in terms of thinking about what he might do with it instead of going like, where are you going to send it?
right. Exactly. And it teaches delayed gratification, which is awesome because this is a world where kids grow up with instant gratification.
Mm,
Everything is just served up to them. I mean, with all the electronics and everything's so like, I want this now. I want this minute, and I want to receive this image and this and this and this. And there's no practice of delayed gratification. And what this does is it actually does one of the ways. There are many ways to teach delayed gratification, but this is an excellent way to do it.
mm,
And it
mm,
also teaches compassion. And we're born with a lot of
mm,
emotions, and one of the emotions we're not born with is compassion, which is why sharing is so hard for little kids because it's an act of compassion. But here you have, you're really like establishing, let's think about others, let's think about their needs. What
mm,
can we do for someone else? What can we do
mm,
for something else? It's wonderful. It's wonderful
mm,
that you set all
mm.
this up. So how does somebody so if people are listening, they're like, yeah, I'm sold. I want to like set it up. They go to your website. If they don't have kids, they just set up their own personal account, correct?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
does it work like a checking account? Does it get hooked to a checking account? Are you able to say, I want, $25 a month to feed into this account, like some people do with savings? Is that something that
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, totally. People can set up their account. They can put a credit card in, for example, and say, hey, I want $25 each month to come into this account. They'll get the tax receipt issued to them every time, that money comes in. Um, they then say, how am I going to spend this money? And if they don't quite know how they're going to do it yet, that's fine. They can wait and sit on the money until they have more confidence about the decision they're willing to make. And that in itself is a really critical part because particularly people who are newer to charitable giving or kind of have heard about it but never really participated, worry about, oh well, is the charity going to spend it well and all these things. And what I think is important for people to hear about that is that that's as much on you as the donor as it is on the charity, right? Because if you think of a charity as being inefficient, then why would you give them money?
right, right,
Right. So instead of
exactly.
saying, oh, all charities are inefficient, which is silly, it's like saying all restaurants make bad food.
Right,
It's just not true. It's more like, okay, well, why don't you find one that you like? Right. And we don't have to agree. You might think it's a great charity and it's efficient, and I might disagree, and that's fine. That's just a point of conversation. But the point is more that when you have the donor advised fund, you can take the time and the space that you need to really think about how you're going to create impact with the money that you've given away, right?
And there's no time
And
limit. Like they don't have to do it within a year, or is there?
well, there's some rules in Canada that in particular that are slightly different than the rules in the United States. So you can't just wait forever.
Oh,
But
okay.
the amount that you have to give away is relatively low. It's 5% of what you donate. So if you donate $100 in a year, you have to, send out $5 of that. So that's really not targeted at smaller donors, even though it works for them, too. It's really targeted at people who are like maybe dropping really big money into the charitable sector to take a tax receipt, and then, which is fine. Please do that, actually. But then that money needs to get activated and create benefit in community, right? And so it's called the disbursement quota, the quota that every charitable account,
Oh,
every
okay.
every foundation needs to put to use, so that money's not just hoarded,
Right.
inside charity structures that don't actually create impact uh, in community.
And I am, just thinking of someone like somebody donated money, all of a sudden they lose their job, they go through hardship. But the money hasn't been dispersed. Is that the type of thing where they can take the money out, or once it's in, it's in?
Once it's in, it's in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I figured.
So no, they can't take it out. Charitable donations are irrevocable.
Yeah,
Um, if there's some type of mistake, if you donate 5,000 and you meant to donate 500, there's room for, eh, you know, error, but there's not room for, oh, I gave away 5,000 and then 3 weeks later I lost my job. I want the money back.
right. So it's not like a true bank account type thing.
It's definitely not a true
Yeah.
bank account. It's a
Okay.
it's analogous to a bank account that's just for charitable giving. The biggest difference is it's not your money anymore. You can't take it out. You can only send
Put
it
it
away,
in.
not to
Right.
yourself,
And give it
to
to someone else.
to give it to another registered charity for them to use.
Such a great idea. What made you think of this, like putting all this together? Or did you say that at the beginning? Like,
Well, no, well, actually, so sort of said that at the beginning, but it's really a good question because, um, while my background is in corporate finance and things like that, because of because of my father, well, and my mom, I was raised in a family that did value charitable giving, first of all. But my dad was um, a charity lawyer. So he was like incredibly sophisticated, heavily engaged in charity of all sorts of variety, right? And advising on it. So I learned an outsized amount about, charity at a relatively young age, but at a professional age. So, and so for me, what the putting everything together was the easy part because I knew so much about the charity world. The hard part for me was asking the question. So getting to ask myself the question, where do people go to get, objective, neutral advice tailored to their charitable interests? Where do they go to get advice about that? And where do they go to carry that type of activity out? That was the question that took me maybe too long to ask myself. But once I was able to ask myself the question, it didn't take me long at all to get to, oh, the donor advised fund, uh, which is a known structure in the charity world, is the answer. And then just to develop policies that made it accessible to everyone and not just wealthy people. Traditionally, donor advised funds have been targeted towards wealthy people. At
right,
Charitable Impact, partly because we built on technology, creating an account is not some administrative burden, right? So, in our world, while we have major donors who have close to $100 million in their individual donor advised funds, my kids have a donor advised fund and get $10 a month. So
right,
we've
right.
really developed a culture and a
That's great.
mindset that everyone is a philanthropist. Doesn't matter how much money you give away, doesn't matter what charities you end up wanting to support. Everyone's a philanthropist, and you can come here and we're building community around that
That's so wonderful.
idea,
Yeah.
And for
That's
what it's worth, the problem with the idea is everyone loves it, but not everyone does something about it.
Right.
right? So one of the big problems in charity, which brings us back to why charitable allowance and developing kids who know this stuff is important, in my opinion, is because everyone's got the intention of doing something great for their community, but not everyone does it.
Right. That's why I think it is important to make it kind of an automatic feed, because often you're well intended to, okay, I'm going to donate this money, I'm going to donate this money. And then like money gets away from you. You're like, well, I didn't do anything this month. So I think really, even if you just start small, you've got a system in place and you're doing something.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would add? Well, first of all, we want you listeners to go to charitableimpact.com, correct? And
Correct.
that's where you can set up an account. Remember, it's for people in Canada. It's for people that live in Canada. Charitableimpact.com. But please listen to the advice on this podcast so that anyone can start a charitable, belief system in your home. And everyone should start a charitable belief system in your home. So get started, practice gratitude every day, start with an allowance and a small allowance. Guys, you don't have to give your kids $100 a week. And, but make sure part of that allowance goes into a charity bucket. Just there's so much good information here and time. If this took to it, like if you listen to this and was like, it's about time I do it, let me do it, get started with this. So, with that said, John, is there any last piece of advice you would give our listeners to who are thinking about should I get started? How do I get started? What's the best thing to do? What would it be?
Well, let me just build on what you said there, Celia, because that was great. So we have three beliefs at Charitable Impact. And the first belief is everybody, like literally everyone, has something that they want to create change for in the world. And the second belief is that they have something to give towards creating that change, right? That might be your time, it might be your talents, it can also include your money. And the third belief is that when you do give, you yourself get something in return. Um, and so especially to the extent you really subscribe to those beliefs, you got to just get started, right? Like the most important thing is to try. If there's one thing we're so what there's one thing that we're trying to achieve, it's increase access to and participation in charitable giving, right? But here's one way to frame that. So today, at least where I live, most people don't give. And then they opt in, and some people opt into giving. We're trying to create a world where everyone opts into giving. And then if you have a really bad experience or you don't like it for some reasons, it's fine. Like you don't have to do it, right? You can leave. So that's a culture change that we're looking to create over time. So it's still free will, right? It's still to
Right,
each their
right.
own, but the default is you do it and then you leave if you don't like it. Kind of like school. You go to school, but if you really don't like it, I guess you're
You
allowed to
don't.
leave. Yeah, yeah, but don't do that. Um,
Right. Go
but
to school, kids. Our message
yeah.
is you go to school.
uh, so so see the advice on that is really like just get started, right? And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. It's taking that intention and moving it into action, generating some experience around that, having that experience fit into who you are and what you already believe in, right? These are the things that you should be giving to. And then, take it from there.
Yes, exactly. And, it's, I think the good thing to realize is nobody's judging you any little bit. And I really feel like if you start doing something, do it monthly. Like, even if you're like $5 a month, I wanted to go into charitable impact or something similar, or you picked out something if you're not in Canada and you can't do this, picked out an organization like the Day of Calm Foundation, which is a wonderful thing that you could give to. Go to dayofcalm.org. But you could do like $5 a month, $5 a month, and it doesn't impact the money you have. And it's something automatic at the end of the year. I know for the United States, you get a little thing and it says, this is your receipt. You wound up donating however much money that is, $50, to this organization. But it's like, yay, I donated because you started doing something and you set it up so it was automatic. Because I feel like if it's not a monthly donation, not that you can't do a one time, but if it's not automatic and you're not used to it, you probably won't do it. Life
Yeah.
will get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Which happens too often.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, John. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Everybody listening, please go to charitableimpact.com and get started. And if you're in Canada, and if you're not in Canada, you're in the United States, then go to dayofcalm.org. So there you go. And I just feel like this is so important. This is such an important message. Kids today need to know that they are part of a bigger picture in the world. And not only are they part of a bigger picture, but they have power in that. There is power knowing more and being aware of what's going on and where you can be helpful and where just not even being a part of it doesn't help. Learn more. You said magic words before when you said exactly what you said was, even if it disagree, well, that's something we'll talk about. Remember that to all the people of the world today, even if you disagree, you can still talk about it. You don't have to not like the person you disagree with. We're allowed to disagree and go on with our lives. But be smart and talk to the person and learn why they have valid reasons why they think the way they do. And that is my message to all of you today. So, but you started it. So I'm just elaborating when you said that. Thank you, John, for being here. Very grateful. And I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Celia. I enjoyed that conversation.
My pleasure. And to all of you listeners out there, if you now feel inspired, Nike coined it, just do it. Just do it. Do it with whatever little a dollar. Don't feel like, oh, I don't have enough money to do it. Yes, you do. You can always make a big difference in someone else's world with even a dollar. So, just do it. And you feel good about it. The power of giving is incredible. It's so much better a feeling than receiving. So get started, help your family. And if you like this podcast, if you enjoyed listening and you learned something, please share it with someone else because they may need help. They may be deciding what to do and they may not be sure of what to do. And as always, guys, leave us a comment. John and I are both grateful for you spending your time with us. And we know you're very busy and we appreciate that. And as always, guys, I wish you days filled with peace, love, tons of laughter. Stuff is funny. You should laugh more. Enjoy your life. And I'll see you here next time on the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. If this episode was helpful to you, please share it with a friend and leave us a review that will help others. Wonder why kids don't come with a manual? Well, wonder no more, because I wrote you one, and it's just won a wonderful Mom's Choice Award. Go to celiasbooks.com and buy your copy of Raising Happy Toddlers, as well as my children's books. I appreciate you being part of my mission to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. Please be intentional and hug on those kids of yours. See you at the next episode.